before you lead people, you have to lead yourself.
Yes.
And because that was the first person, before I led anybody else, I just practiced on me. I practiced on me, and then I practiced in my family, and then I practiced in my community and at my church and all the places where other people were.
Yeah.
And then I practiced it as I tried to build a business. And so that is what I want to share with people, is that anybody can do that. Whether you're the CEO in the C-suite of a big fancy high rise, or you're just getting started, or you have a dream to get started.
Have you enjoyed listening to the IncrediPaul podcast? Are you looking for a way to support it? Or maybe you just want some swag? Check out the IncrediPaul store today. We have shirts, hoodies, sweatshirts, hats, stickers, and so much more. Go to IncrediPaul.org, IncrediPaul.org, and click on the store link. Or go to the link in my socials bio and click on the IncrediPaul shop. Looking forward to seeing your IncrediPaul look.
Turn this up, turn this up.
Your professional development is one of the keys to your career success. When you combine your desire to grow with actionable steps, your journey to success becomes an incredible reality. Welcome to the IncrediPaul podcast. And now, sharing his expertise, experience, and excellence with the world, here's your host, Paul Ferranbi.
I'm Paul Ferranbi, and welcome to the IncrediPaul podcast, where we learn to become the best versions of ourselves by learning from each other. Today, I have the honor of having a speaker, trainer, author, and overall lover of life, Traci Morrow, on the podcast. Traci, why don't you introduce yourself?
Oh, well, I am so honored and excited to be here. Like I told you before we even started recording, Paul, I was like so excited for this because every time I'm around you, like sunlight comes out of your smile and your face. So it's always fun when you can get with somebody and spend a little time with somebody who is just a ray of sunshine. So thank you for having me.
Sure.
I am a mom of 6, and I've been married for 32 and counting years to my husband, Casey. And we have a grandson who is about to turn 2 and a granddaughter who is on the way, who will be here in a couple months. And I just love people and love cultivating relationships. And that really is what I really have worked so hard to do, not only in my own life, but in the life of my business and in my ministry. And I'm sure we'll get into it, but that has been my number one goal, is just to make relationships number one for me.
That's amazing. And it really shows in everything you do, whether it's stuff you do with the John Maxwell team and stuff you do on your own with your own business. And I know we're going to get into all of this, and hopefully it's not going to become like a 2-hour podcast, but we'll try and get as much as we can. But how about you talk a little bit about, I know you talked about the different ways that you help people with just developing relationships. Like I know there's a lot of different facets to your business. Is there anything that's your favorite, or how did all of that get started?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, is there anything my favorite? I think I'll start out by saying that when I say relationships are important to me, the favorite thing about it was when I first started learning from John Maxwell, I was 21 years old, and I was naturally good with people, but I didn't necessarily love people. There was a rub for me. People could get on my nerves really easily, or, I think we can all relate to that, where definitely. You can care about people, but really quickly, I just had a spirit as a younger person that just things irritated me a little bit more. I wasn't as patient. And so I think what I really loved is that if you are intentional to grow, what I found from learning from John and really digging into myself is people won't change, but I can change. I can work on myself. Yes. And the more I work on me, the more grace I can show towards other people. Wow. The more I open myself up to let God change my heart, because I'm a person of faith, then the more my lens changes. And really it's like, it truly is like putting on a different lens. And once you see through that lens, then you can't unsee it. Like you just have a different view of things. And I think that was the most exciting thing for me, that I could plug into every aspect of my life. Does it mean that people don't get on my nerves at times? Or of course I have 6 kids and I've been married for forever. Do I get on my own nerves? Let's be honest. But what I've learned is like, it's just humanity, and humanity is going to rub up against humanity. But I really can look at a person and see the person beyond the behavior that might be annoying, and just see the value of the person. And that's the most exciting piece of it, is learning that the more I grow, the bigger my heart can grow towards loving people and accepting people. And that is inspiring, because it's exhausting to be annoyed. It's exhausting to be frustrated.
Yes.
And so the more I plug that in, whether that was raising up my kids or getting involved in my community or starting a business, I could practice that, because people are everywhere.
Yes, that's very true. Like 8 billion people now, right?
That's insane. Yes, that's a lot of people. So anyway, that's probably my favorite thing. And then for me, I am drawn to people. I would say I'm an extroverted introvert. So I do recharge by myself. I like alone time. I like to be in a quiet space. Even like when we gather together at Maxwell events, those big events, or if I'm with my company, I like to pull back and go back to my hotel room just to be in a quiet space.
Yes.
And just be in quiet for a little bit, and just be in my head and have that quiet moment for a second. And then I want to enter right back out. Like I'm drawn back to the people, but I do need to pull back a little bit just to recharge and refuel a little bit before I head back in. Cause it can be, I give so much of myself, and I get so involved emotionally with people that it can be a little bit of a drain. So anyway.
Wow. That's powerful. Did you always really connect with being an extroverted introvert, or did that kind of like develop through your business and things that you did?
Well, I'm from a big family. Like my family of origin was a big family. I'm one of 5 kids. I'm number 4 out of 5. So by the time I came on the scene, there was already a lot of kids in the family. And I have a brother after me, and then I have a lot of cousins. And so I feel like people were just everywhere I went, I was always around people. And so I think from the time I was really young, I found pretty quickly that people would tell me wherever I would go, I would just connect with someone, and someone would tell me their life story. And my mom, from the time I was a young person, would say, Traci, people always tell you their story. Have you ever noticed that? Like wherever you go, people tell you their story. And so when someone highlights something to you, you start to pay attention to it.
Yes.
And so I intuitively thought, well, I want to get better with people. Now, how I thought that, I don't know. I just thought, if I'm good with people, then I want to get better with people, because I wasn't great at math. I wasn't great at history. I felt like school got in the way of my social life. And so I say that kind of jokingly, but it's also really true. Like I just wanted to be out with my friends, which what teenager doesn't, let's be honest.
Right.
But so by the time I was 21, that's still pretty young, is when I found out about John Maxwell. And I thought, well, if I'm going to I thought I was going to own like a hair salon, because I was in hair school at the time.
Yeah.
So I thought I'm going to learn about business. And so what I started learning from John is about how to get better with people, how to have better relationships. And then I was like, whoa, this is amazing. So what I'm hearing him say is, there are a lot of other things that you can hire to staff your weaknesses in the area that I wasn't going to be good at in business. So I don't have to learn everything, but if I can learn to really get good at valuing people and connecting with people. And so it's kind of this progression where I was naturally drawn to people. I was good with people. I could tell I needed to grow in the area. And by the time I was 21, someone had already introduced me to who I believe, for people, if they are listening or watching your podcast, if they've not heard of John Maxwell, he is really, his greatest gifts. He talks about leadership, but his greatest gift is he is a connector. He can make you feel like you're the only person in the world and that he cares so much about you.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
that's amazing. I mean, don't you
Yes.
feel that when he's on a stage, or
Yes.
even when you're reading his book, you feel
Yes.
like he's not trying to impress you about what he knows.
Mhm.
You feel like he's trying to help you when you're reading a
Yes.
book.
Yes.
And I thought, that's how I want to be. I didn't think like in a fan, like as a young person, a fangirl way. I didn't think, oh, I thought I wasn't like fangirling. I
Mhm.
thought to myself, I want to be like this person.
Yes.
I want to make people feel how this person makes me feel. That's
Mhm.
a gift. And so I
Yeah.
wanted to learn more about that.
That is amazing.
Isn't it? It's a gift. I mean, it's a gift, but honestly, it's something everyone can cultivate. I think
Mhm.
everyone can cultivate it, because if you care enough to notice people, because everyone just
Mhm.
wants to be seen and valued and known and appreciated for who they are and
Yes.
how they're wired.
Mhm.
And if we can do that for someone else, that's really giving them a gift. It makes it about them, not about us.
Yes. Yeah, that's so powerful. Just being others focused and being value focused, and really your overall progression of connecting. And I had no idea that you were going in beauty school at first, going to do hair stuff at first.
Yeah, I did. I worked in a salon actually, when I was young, before I had kids.
Awesome.
So I still cut my whole family's hair.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yep. So you learn something new about a
Yeah,
person.
that's super cool. I love it. I love it. So at what point did you think about starting a business or kind of going on your own?
I think because I dropped out of college after one semester,
Mhm.
and because I went there for graphic arts, and I wasn't able to start taking graphic art classes until I was
Ah,
going to be a junior in college.
yeah. Yeah.
So I'm like in an anthropology class, I'm in a
Mm,
math class, I'm in an English class, and there was some other class. I can't remember what it was. But I just remember thinking, oh my goodness, I have to take these classes for 2 more years
oh
before
man.
I can even get my hands,
Mm,
in the art room.
yeah.
And so I quit after a semester, and my dad really gave me the gift. He said, Tracy, you're really good with hair, and school is not for everyone.
Yeah.
And maybe, all your friends from the time I was a sophomore in high school, freshman in high school, I was doing my friends' hair. I was cutting hair.
Wow.
I didn't even know how to cut hair, but I was still cutting people's hair. And so he said, why don't you get your license for that? And so when I left college for that, I thought to myself, one day I'll own a business. And I thought it would be a salon, but I
Yeah.
knew I wanted to have a bunch of babies. And
Mm,
so I thought, my husband and I, when we got married, I was 20. And so I thought that's pretty young. And I knew I wanted to have a lot of babies. And so I thought down the road, once they get into school, then I'll open a business, a salon.
mm,
So I started listening to John because I thought down the road, I'm going to open a salon. So I might as well start learning from him while I'm raising my kids.
wow.
And I had my license already, and I cut hair out of my home. And so I kind of had a little traveling salon. So I would go to people's
Wow.
homes and cut like a whole family's hair.
Wow.
So, yeah, so I thought, well, down the road, I'll own a business like a salon. So I might as well start learning about business. And that's kind of set me on my path. I've never owned a salon. Eventually I opened up a health and wellness business to help people with their weight loss. But, yeah, I never a salon to this day. Don't rule it out yet. I'm not.
I was gonna say, is it in the future?
Yeah, you never know with me. So
That's really cool. I know you just talked about the health and wellness stuff. So did you start doing some of that stuff as you were doing the salon, and what kind of caused you to dive more into it? How did you even
Um,
stumble upon it?
I was active. I played sports. I did cheerleading when I was in
Mhm.
school. And then before I had kids, I taught aerobics. Aerobics,
Oh,
such
wow.
old terminology. But I used to teach aerobics in a gym before I had kids.
Mhm.
And then once I had kids, I can remember so I have 4 biological kids and 2 adopted kids. But there's
Awesome.
when kid number 4 was 8 is when we brought our youngest 2 kids home, and we adopted
Mm.
them at the same time. So when kid number 4 was, I joined LA Fitness. We lived in Los Angeles at the
Yeah.
time, and I joined LA Fitness, and I went in there. Now I'm like a sloppy ponytail I've got 4 kids. I barely can make it to the gym. I've got a sloppy ponytail on the side of my head, a big baggy t-shirt, like I just look like a slob. And I come into the gym to exercise, right? But it's in the height, it's LA Fitness. It's in the height of I didn't realize that's like a pickup place. So
Oh.
I go in and everyone's dressed up and
Oh, man.
fancy and leotards. And I'm like, oh, this is not actually what I was thinking it was going to be. I mean, the workout was good, but it was
Yes.
just it was intimidating for me.
Mm.
And I had to drive through traffic off 2 freeways in order to get to the
Oh,
gym.
wow.
And so it just wasn't realistic for me. And so I was just really praying about it. I was a runner. I would run, and my husband and I played in a couple different soccer leagues. I'm not super good, but I loved the game.
Yeah.
So we
Who's
played
not?
in a co-ed league, and I played in a women's league, and that kept me in shape. And then I had gestational diabetes with my 4th pregnancy.
Oh, wow.
And so that puts you at risk of having diabetes later. And
Mm.
so I found an infomercial for this guy, Tony Horton,
Oh,
and
wow.
who's the creator of P90X. And
Yeah.
it was this program right before P90X. And so I thought it was money back guarantee. And so I said to my husband, let's just do this.
Mm.
It was workout at home. I like the safety of that, the safety of that. I didn't have to
Mhm.
drive anywhere. I could do it in wearing mismatched clothes. It didn't matter if my ponytail was on the side of my head, and I could do it around nap time. And so we did that program to the letter, and it taught us how to feed our family nutritious meals, not just fast meals for a big family. It
Mm.
taught us I was open to it. I just didn't know. And
Mm.
so it taught us so much. And so it just ignited a fire in me to oh my gosh, if all my mom friends could know, we got really sculpted and I went from being really tired all the time to just really having great energy. And it
That's
was
awesome.
because I was suddenly eating well. And
Mm.
so that kind of set me on the path to when they went from an infomercial company to a network marketing company.
Mm.
And our CEO asked me if I would help him launch that into the network marketing. And I was really like, I don't know. I didn't really want to do network marketing, to be
Mm.
honest, but I believed in it. And so I
Mhm.
decided to just do it in my own way. And that was
Okay.
just share what worked for us.
Yeah.
And our team just exploded.
Wow.
Yeah. And then we were off and running.
Almost literally, right?
Literally. Yes. Almost literally. But yeah, we launched it as a network marketing company. And the founders meeting for that was the day before Casey and I left for Ethiopia to bring home
Oh,
our
wow.
number 5 and number 6, our 5th and 6th kids. We call them by numbers. We're like, number 3 is, I talked to number 3 today. Or things like from Dr. Seuss, we called it
Yes.
thing 1 and thing 2, and
Thing
then it
one
just
and
kept
thing
going. And now they're like thing 5 is, have you talked to thing 5 today? 1 year we got them all jammies. They're like thing 1, thing 2, thing 3, 4.
That is so funny.
Oh my gosh. So anyway, and the rest is
Man.
history. Yeah, and then I used John's stuff because everything I learned, I'd use
Mhm.
John Maxwell's stuff to start building my team and training my team, because
Mhm.
it's all relationships, and that's
Yeah.
relationship business. And so and then that's how, so I always say John's books and trainings taught me how to prepared me for building my business. And then building my
Mm.
business, I kept saying to our CEO, let's bring in John Maxwell. Let's bring in John Maxwell as our keynote. And then they brought him in. And then I met John, and John was like, Traci, you know what? I pray for God to bring me people. And I believe we're going to work together. And I was like, I thought like, that's a nice thing to say. We're going to work together. Like John Maxwell means that. He really meant it.
Yeah.
Because then I showed up the next event and he's like, Traci. And then they asked me to like he asked how he could serve me and my team. And he started mentoring me and my team. And then they asked me to start, they said, you and John really work well together. We're going to do these live calls. Would you start hosting his calls?
Wow.
And so then they asked me to host this, and then they asked me to host that. And then it was like, all the things he was doing, I started hosting. And so it'll be 10 years
That's
so I've been with Beachbody. This is my 20-year anniversary. And this
Congratulations.
Thank you. And this is my 10-year anniversary with John. So
congratulations.
Thanks.
That is so remarkable how those two things tie together. I know you're still doing a lot of stuff with Beachbody, Karen. I know, but I don't know, does it look a little bit different now? Because I know between that and the stuff you have going on with John, and like, if there is a typical day or week for you, what does that look like for you?
Oh my goodness. So let me just say, Beachbody is changing its name. And I have to say, I'm so grateful for that, because when I first started it, I never heard Beachbody. I just heard Beachbody, like Nike. And so, but the older I get, the more I hear Beachbody, like a beach body.
Yeah.
And so they are changing it to body. And I like that. I like that because it's about your body. It's taking care of your body. It's taking care of you. It's a part of your life. And we should pay attention to our body. And so I love that. I love the aha moments for people. Fitness never became, with all the times that I worked with Tony Horton, which, by the way, I just love that guy. He's just the real deal. He really is somebody who cares. He was skinny in growing up and had coaches who were mean to him and yelled at him, and that just wasn't inspiring to him. And he said, I was picked on and bullied as a kid, and I always dreamed of creating something that was for everyone, no matter what size you were, whether you were too big or too little he said, I had a speech impediment as a kid. And so he has a heart literally to create fitness for everyone, that everyone gets to play. And that's really how it should be. I mean, there should be a place for everybody at the table, no matter what you're doing. And so, so that still is a part of what I do, because I believe fitness will always be a part of what I do, because when I'm healthy and fit in this one and only body that I get in this whole life, it has to last me my whole life. If I don't take care of my car, I can buy a new car. If I don't take care of my body, it's broken down for the rest of my life. And so, I've already had thyroid cancer, and I've had my thyroid removed, and I know what your health, it just makes your health all the more realize how important it is. You get one body for your whole life. And so the more healthy I am, the better I am, the better I show up as a mom, as a wife, as a friend, as a leader, as a team leader. And so, so I will always have a hand in helping people create a space in their life to take care of them. It doesn't have to be extreme. It just has to be some part of your day where you're taking care of yourself. And then with John, I feel like that's then the next step, because before you lead people, you have to lead yourself. And because that was the first person, before I led anybody else, I just practiced on me. I practiced on me, and then I practiced in my family, and then I practiced in my community, and at my church and all the places where other people were.
Yeah.
And then I practiced it as I tried to build a business. And so that is what I want to share with people, is that anybody can do that. Whether you're the CEO in the C-suite of a big fancy high rise, or you're just getting started, or you have a dream to get started. Anybody can grow to that next person. And if it next best version of themselves. And if they have a big dream for themselves, just take that next step and take that next step. Because I never set out to work with Tony Horton, and I never set out to work with John Maxwell. That was not ever on my radar. Maybe some people have that on their radar. For me, that was not on my radar. My radar was like, I just want to be better. I just want to grow. I do not want to stay the same.
Yeah.
And so anyway, my typical days, my days are not super typical, but I do when I'm home, this is my office in my home. So, and just down the hall is my husband's office at home. So we both work from home. And that's the first time we've just worked from home together in the last 3 years. He always worked outside the home. So when we moved to Colorado 3 years ago, it's great because we're coworkers. And let me just tell you, he is such a noisy coworker. He taps when he gets stressed, he taps and he cranks up his rock music. And I'm like, I'll text him. Can you please turn your music down, with a smiley face or like kissy lips, trying to be nice? And he's like, sad face or a thumbs down, like, you're ruining all my fun. But we usually will wake up, and different times in the summertime, the first thing I do is I make my bed. And I always tell people John always says, get a win under your belt. And the first way you get a win under your belt is making your bed. And it seems like a small thing, but I taught this to all 6 of my kids. My oldest son is turning 30 this year, and my youngest is 17. And I always say, a life of order begins with a made bed. It's the first win you can get, because at any time when your brain is full of clutter, when your office is full of clutter, when your things are happening in your life, if you can go back into your room and your room is in order, there's just a space in your life where there's order in your life. And it's the first thing that you can do. So I'll make my bed, and then we'll either take our dog for a walk if our weather's nice. But if it's not, I will throw on my workout clothes and head out into my garage gym and work. I've transformed a little corner of my garage into a gym, and I'll get my workout in, and then shower and head down to my office and have a little quiet time.
Awesome.
And then I usually have calls scheduled. I'll do some writing on my computer for Maxwell stuff. I'll check in with my fitness groups, and usually my day goes pretty much scheduled calls, booked calls, or working on my computer all day. Either a training that I'm going to do, I have to write up something, or I have to record something with Maxwell, and then in the evening time, Casey and I, if we didn't walk in the morning, we'll take a walk with our dog in the evening and have family dinner together, and then just have a chill evening. Because my word for the year is boundaries. And so that boundaries is for me, because I tend to like max out my life and overextend myself. And so that it worked better when I was younger. But the older I get, like, I find the last few months of the year, every year I'm sick. Like November and December, I'm sick as a dog. So Casey's like, you need more margin in your life. If your life was a piece of paper, you cover every bit of that paper. He's like, you need margins. You need margins in your life. And so my word is boundaries, to put boundaries on myself, not with people. It's boundaries on myself, and learning to say no, and that choosing what's best, and not all the good things that are going on, but choosing what's best and being wise with how I schedule and spend my time. So I've given a few people permission to ask me. And so you can ask me, Paul, when you see me at the different IMC events, you could say, how are you doing, Traci, with your boundaries? I give you permission, because it's important for people to ask me, because I don't want to have to say to somebody, I'm doing terrible.
Accountability piece.
Yeah. So.
Well, I love it. And I know you were telling me earlier that you and Casey are celebrating 32 years this year, right?
It'll be 33.
Or
Yeah.
33 this year.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. I just wanted to mention that because I know you recently became, along with all the other stuff you've been doing, you recently became an author last year and had this amazing book that is, let's see if I can get that in focus for
You
people on
are so
YouTube.
nice.
Real life marriage. It's, and for everyone listening, those on YouTube, wherever you're listening, I say it's the most relatable marriage book and just really down to earth, because we were talking about this right before that. Some of the other marriage books I've read, they kind of feel like more abstract and they don't really talk about the details or how you can really apply a lot of things. I love this book.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. That book is, I didn't, the whole reason I set out to write it was because marriage was hard for us in the first few years, not because we didn't love each other. We absolutely loved each other. We are just so different. And now I feel like there's so much more personal development and so much of a focus on growth. But when we got married in 1990. And I guess if you were going to read a book, you were going to go to the library, or you were going to have word of mouth, or you were going to hear about it in a Bible study group, or you were going to go to the bookstore and scan the shelves, or find it at Costco. And what I found was, being people of faith, the church books, the books that we read by Christian authors, there were good ones, definitely, and there were little nuggets that we could pull. But what I found was, like, we were more messy than the people in the books. I felt like it was harder for us to navigate some of the things that were in our life.
Yeah.
And not that they were terrible. It's just, we were just so different, and just basic things of living together with someone who's different. And we view things so differently that some of the most common things of living with another person who's wired differently than you was just difficult. Really difficult. And part of it was our personality. What we thought, even what in my mind, I thought he should be as the man and I should be as the woman. I am different than I even thought I should be. And so I was trying to hold myself back and be different and push him to be more like how I'm actually wired.
Yeah. And
he's not wired like me at all. And so I'm trying to make him be almost like a puppet and hold myself back from being myself, something what I thought I should be. It was a whole mess. And so I read all these books, and we studied, and we kept working at it. And it was like, we pulled all of these tools from all these different places. And that's what this book is all the things. It was like, it finally clicked. If you grab all these different tools and you apply them and you go, okay, personality assessment, love language assessment. And just those two things alone, understanding that I don't have to be anything other than how God made me.
Yes.
And he doesn't have to be anything other than how God made him. And guess what? We're actually, in our differences, perfect for one another. We are the perfect complement to one another, because where I'm weak, he's strong, and where he's strong, where he's weak, I'm strong. And so we cover one another. And so I can lean into him, and he is so strong there. And just, we started having conversations. I can remember we were on our elbows in our bed one night, reading this book and about personalities, reading about ourselves to each other. And I put the book down, and I can see it like it was yesterday. And it was multiple years ago, maybe 18 years ago. And I just looked at him, and he goes, "We're not crazy." I mean, and it's, how sad is that? We've been married probably 12 or 13 years, but he said, "We're not crazy." And I'm like, can you believe what this book is saying? It's like she knows us. And we felt so free. And here's what I'm going to show you something. This is what I keep by my office, by my desk. And I keep this because do you remember did you ever have one of these? You might be too young. Did you ever have one of these for your locks? Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, I did. And for those on the listening, she's holding up a combination lock.
Oh yeah. For those of you who are listening, it's the combination lock. Hear that? But can you hear that? I don't know if you can hear.
I think the noise
Spinning.
cancellation is that way to go.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's terrible. Okay, I'm just spinning a lock now. I'll just tell you step by step what I'm doing. But why I love this locker combination, it reminds me first of all of like PE, which was terrible anyway. But when you had to like change into your PE clothes. But
Mhm.
what I think of those assessments, and when you learn about one another and then
Mhm.
you share that about one another, is it's like you are decoding one another. And every time you
Wow.
find out more about one another, you are one step closer to unlocking your true self.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
so many times you feel locked up. You feel like things you aren't open to one another because you don't even know yourself and you haven't figured yourself out, and you're trying to figure out that person and you don't even know yourself. So as you learn about one another and yourselves and you share that openly, you unlock one another. And assessments, to me, every time you do it, it's like you get the next number. And I feel like this little lock is always a reminder to me that, every time we learn something more about one another, we are opening one another up to one another. The other thing I want to say about this book, it's called Real Life Marriage, and you can get it on Amazon. But the other thing I want to say about it is that it gives you practical things at the end of every chapter to get together and talk about and discuss on like a date or when you sit down with one another, so that it's not just that you're reading it. Now, maybe one of you is a reader and one of you isn't. I'm the reader of our couple and Casey isn't. So in our situation, if it was us, I would be the one who was reading the book. He might read it eventually, but I would be the one who was reading it. And then I would take those questions and say, hey, I'm going to read this book and I'm going to share it with you. What do you think? And we'll talk about it at dinner. And he would say, yeah, that sounds good. And so then I wouldn't twist everything to my side. I would say, this is what I'm learning. And I would share it with him. And then we would discuss it. And he was very open to that discussion because we would find such interesting things from books. And so this book, I thought I wanted it to be the same thing. I wanted it to be where it gets couples talking about the things we need to be talking about. And too often we aren't talking about the things that we need to be talking about. So anyway, I hope if you are a member of a couple, whether you've been married for a really long time or you're just got married or you're thinking about getting married, seriously dating and considering getting engaged. I have kids. I have a kid who's engaged. I have kids who are newly married. I have kids who've been married for a while. And I've got one who has a serious girlfriend, and they're deciding whether or not they're going to get married. And so all of them are going through this book. And because it's, we tell how we messed up, but it's also tells you, hey, you aren't the only one. You won't be as screwed up as us. So enter feeling free to know it's okay if you're a little bit messy, because everybody's messy. And the idea is to navigate your way to finding your way in your couple.
I love it. Yeah, I really enjoyed the application piece. And between me and my wife Jabria, I'm the reader. So like going through it and just talking about it, discussing things, and even just like I like what you talked about, leading to our differences and the personality assessments. I think that's really key, because I don't know how many people on the podcast are familiar with the 5 love languages, but that was one of the first assessments we did. And we realized is that like just the way we show love and way we want to receive love was not we're same on like one of them, but most of it was like totally different, like almost reverse.
Which can be hard, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what's yours? What's your number one?
Mine is quality time.
Okay.
And is number one, and then like words of affirmation.
Okay, that's my number one. And what is your wife's number one?
Hers number one is physical touch.
Okay.
And the second one, I'm trying to think, it's not gifts. We were like both pretty low on gifts. Oh, it was acts of service. Is the second one.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So what is like physical touch in your list? Do you remember? Is it
It's
like
like I
5?
think it's like tied for last.
And so this is okay, this is a great example.
Yeah.
So what we would have is like if your number one is physical touch and the other person's is tied for last,
Mhm,
then do you see how easy that can be for somebody to feel unloved?
mhm,
And you're giving compliments and you're spending time with her
mhm,
and you're loving her the best way you know how. You're
mhm,
giving her your whole heart with
mhm,
your time and your words. But if she doesn't feel you putting your arm around her, rubbing her shoulder, playing with her
mhm,
hair,
mhm.
rubbing her feet while you're watching a movie or just touching,
Yeah,
then she can actually feel completely unloved.
yeah.
And that's how it was for us too.
Mhm.
Mine is words of affirmation. That's his dead last.
Oh,
And his is acts of service. And that was mine. That was dead last for me.
mhm,
So he would do things for me and I would say nice words to him. And we were loving each other the way we wanted to receive love. And
mhm,
neither of us were getting our cups filled.
mhm,
And so when we realized he thought I was like, I had to practically beg for a compliment. And because that just wasn't, he was showing me
mhm,
by acts of service.
mhm,
And so there are so many couples who are loving each other with everything they have. And
mhm,
it's like they are literally speaking in a different language. And
mhm.
the other person isn't feeling it at all.
Yeah.
And this can also be if you have children then. So by the time you have kids, when I read this book, I already had kids. I had a teenager. So she was 15 and I was like, I had to go and apologize because I also love to give gifts. That's one of
Mhm,
my expressive ways. So
mhm,
how I like to receive it is like words of affirmation and physical touch.
mhm,
But one of my giving is like one of the ways I show love is giving gifts.
mhm.
So there's like how you give love and then how you like to receive love.
Yeah, yeah.
So I would like buy her things and she wanted quality time. And that was like
Mm.
that was tied for last for me. And so I had to go back to her and apologize and say, I'm realizing that if you can go back and say, every time I bought you a gift, that was me taking you out for coffee or sitting one-on-one with you,
Mm,
or like, I'm going to do better moving forward. Every one of my kids has a different love language. Every one of my kids has a different personality. So remembering, oh, have I given that kid a back rub because he's really physical touch. He
mhm,
loves to have his head scratched or played with
mhm,
his hair or whatever.
mhm,
And this one really wants to go out to coffee, just me and that kid.
mhm.
And this one really wants, if I buy this kid something, then they feel really loved.
Mhm.
Is it hard?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because you are doing something that it is not natural for you.
Mhm,
It's asking you to do something, but that's what love is.
mhm,
Loving them in a way that speaks to their heart. And so it's a huge lesson, but the first person we practice with is our spouse or significant other.
mhm.
And then eventually, if children should enter into the picture, then it can work for that too. And it can also work in the workplace. I mean, there's love languages
Mm.
at work because it's also how you like to be celebrated.
Oh, yeah, for
Physical
sure.
touch doesn't mean rubbing your feet in the workplace. Physical touch means like, do you like someone to grab you on the shoulder or pat you on the back or shake
Yeah.
your hand or give you a hug, an
Mhm.
appropriate hug?
Yeah.
But like, people understanding that one of the first things John Maxwell asked me, he and Mark Cole, when I first started working at Maxwell Leadership, it was,
Mhm,
what are your top 2 love languages, Traci?
mhm,
And they are so good to give me words of affirmation because they took a note of it and they immediately applied it and have for the last 10 years. That's impressive.
Wow.
That creates a space where you want to work.
Yeah.
That creates a space where you feel valued and seen
Mhm,
and recognized. And again, same thing I said when I was 21. When I see John, I don't go, oh, John is the greatest person, like idolize him. I think what a wonderful example. I want to make other people feel that way.
mm,
And so I don't, I have so many times I quote him and I fear people are thinking, I think he's God or something. No, not at all. I think he is a wonderful example of how to make people feel valued. And
Yes.
that's what I want to do for other people. So I love learning from him because he's such a great example.
Yes. And it's really impressive for me. And I know you see it firsthand, like very close quarters, like how he's always continuing to learn after all these years, like all the stuff he's poured out. He could just sit back and just not do anything, but he's just
Coast.
continuing to learn.
Totally. Yesterday was his 76th birthday.
Wow.
And he's still learning. And I sent him a birthday text and he sent me back a picture that Mark Cole clearly took from behind. It's John and his interpreter standing next to him from behind, and this huge, beautiful auditorium full of people in Vietnam. And he's like, thank you so much for the birthday wishes. I just spoke to 3,000 leaders in Vietnam. And I'm like,
Wow.
when you could be doing anything you wanted for yourself,
Yeah.
you gave of yourself, because he pays his own way when he goes to those things.
Wow.
You gave of yourself to go and serve people across the world on your birthday, rather than have your friends and family throw you a big extravagant party.
Man.
That's impressive to me.
Yes. Very.
That's walking your talk. That's
Yeah.
not like, oh, sometimes I do the good thing and sometimes I,
Mhm.
he walks that talk consistently year after year. And again, that's an example that I want to follow and want to do for other people too.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have nothing else to say about that. That's
I know
so
it kind of does. It quiets your spirit because you think, gosh, I want to do that. And there's a cost to that.
Mm,
There's a cost.
yes, that's true. That's true. Well, we're about out of time. It's flown by, but
I know.
I don't know. Is there anything that we haven't talked about yet that you want to talk about?
Oh gosh, I don't know. We could talk about you. How are you doing in your first year of marriage?
It's overall great, but as like we were talking about before, it's just learning like how just learning each other really. It's
Yeah.
like different when you're in dating than when you're married. And then for us, I think it was even more different because we were long distance for a long time.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Did you have sisters growing up?
I had one sister and she was the youngest.
Okay. And
Yeah.
how much younger than you was she?
7 years.
Okay. So at least you know what it is to live with a girl.
Yeah.
Because I say that seems kind of silly, but at the same time, so my two daughters who have gotten married
Mhm.
have both married men who only have brothers.
Oh, wow.
So they have been in for a rude awakening when they're suddenly living with a girl who's not their mom. Because it's a lot, there's a lot of things. The benefit of having a sister as a man, you just don't even realize until you get married and you're like, oh, of course, that stuff.
Yeah.
That there are things that you don't realize when you have just grown up with a house full of boys. So, anyway, but yeah, there's definitely a learning curve to being married. I mean, it's a lifetime of a learning curve, truly.
Yes.
It's merging your life with another person for life takes a lot of intention and it's hard, but it's good hard because my grandparents were married when my grandfather passed away. They were married just shy of 73 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And so they had great stories to tell. I mean, there was very hard at times for them. They had 9 children and they had hard years. They were very poor when my mom was growing up, but can just remember, and now my parents have been married 64 years, 65 years.
That's awesome.
And just before we came here, I texted you and said, I'm going to go help my parents with something. And I went over to their house, and they just like, they have both them and my grandparents have said, when you just take the time and you stay and you work it out with one person for life, you're going to grow in different ways. I mean, you are going to grow apart. I think it's crazy to think two people who get married, no matter what age you're at, that you get married, that you wouldn't grow apart. Everyone's going to grow apart. The point is that you're going to grow and morph into two totally different people, better versions of yourself, hopefully. And the intention is to continue to grow back to each other as you're growing and morphing in these two different directions. And it becomes so much richer. A relationship becomes so much richer after you weather those storms and you grow back to one another for life. And then the memories that you have. The other day I said to Casey, and then we can close out, but he said something. We were watching a movie while we were eating dinner. And I said, what was that thing? And that's literally all I said. And he goes, oh, it was this. And he was right. He answered me. And I said, that's so funny that you could tell by the tone that I said, what was that thing? That you knew what I was talking about and that you answered me exactly right.
Wow.
That is two people. We've been living together for 32 and a half years. But I just thought, like, that's one of the value of, like, one more little teeny tiny value of really staying through. We have had really hard days in this marriage, but we've stayed and we worked it through, and we fought for one another as we fought with one another. And now we're at that stage of life that it's like we're finishing each other's sentences, and how he knew what I was saying, I have no idea, but he was spot on. So anyway, I in this modern world where people will say, oh, it's just two special people who found each other. It isn't. It's really two people. If you're willing to work it through, you can, even the most different of people, you can really make something so amazing, and it's worth it. I will say it is so, so worth it.
That's amazing. I love it. I love it. So I want to make sure people can connect with you with all the different stuff you're doing. So.
Oh yeah, that would be so great. Well, my book is on Amazon, and then my website, it's called Real Life Marriage by Traci Morrow, and Traci is with an I. People always miss that. They get it with a Y. Thanks, Mom and Dad, for that. Spelling my name with an I. But and then you can find me on Instagram is where I am, Traci, and then Morrow, and then TraciMorrow.com is where you can sign up for newsletters, and I send out stuff about health and wellness and leading yourself and events that we're doing, and when I do mentoring events. And so I answer all of my stuff. It takes a while sometimes if I'm traveling or whatever, but I do answer myself. I don't have a team that answers for me, because that's the piece I love. I like the piece of interacting with people. So it might take a little while, but I will be the one who answers you back. So reach out and follow, and I would love to make that connection with people. Awesome. And thank you for having me on, Paul. I really appreciate it. You are IncrediPaul.
Thank you. Thank you for being on the podcast. I know there's so many other things you can be doing, and you have a big family and a big heart, and it's just been a pleasure. Every time I see you, whether it's on conferences or the first time I saw you, I think it was during the IMC, there was like the time you could just connect with the host. And I know you and Neil were on there, and I connected with you. Just the joy you bring to the room is remarkable.
Oh, well, are you going to be there this time?
I won't be at IMC about that. Okay. Well, not in March. I'm trying to be there in August. But I will be at Live to Lead for sure in October.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Oh, good. Yes, please come up. Definitely.
Yes.
For sure. That's such a small event. That's a great event. So
Yeah, I like it. I like it. But yeah, I need to get to an IMC. It didn't work out for this March, but I want to be there in August for sure.
Good,
Yeah.
good. I love it. Well, great.
Yeah, so it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast. And for everyone that's been listening, I hope you learned from Traci's story, just valuing life, going through and being intentional about developing and just enjoying life in general, like from what you were doing with doing hair to the Beachbody stuff to working with John Maxwell, still working with Beachbody or Body to be Body
That's
and John
right.
Maxwell. It's just awesome. So I hope
Well,
everyone enjoyed the podcast and see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the IncrediPaul podcast with Paul Ferranbi. We hope you enjoyed. Be sure to rate and review this podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform. We'll see you here next time. And be incredible. Incredible.